Goodbye.
That's marvellous.
Well, that reporter says Daddy's majority was the biggest majority the Unionists have had since 1900.
Unionists, miss?
Well, that's what the parties call Mrs. Gates. Conservative and Unionist.
You fancy that?
And he referred to Daddy as the new member for Horbury and Westcombe.
The honourable and gallant member for Horbury and Westcombe.
Commander Arthur Bourne, DSO, MP.
I'll never get used to it, never. Well, it's no good me standing here all morning. Here's the post, Miss Vicky.
Oh, thank
There's
you.
telegrams for the commander that keep on arriving. Letter for you.
Oh.
And there's a letter for you, Miss Laura.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, lovely. It's from Klaus. He's staying at Ross-on-Wye with some friends. He wants me to come to lunch. He says he'll come and fetch me.
But will the new member let you go?
Of course he will. Daddy likes Klaus. Anyway, the Von Heinigs are old family friends by now. Who's yours from?
It's from our housekeeper, Mrs. Hayden. Grandmama's been up to her tricks again, and Mrs. Hayden's leaving us.
Oh, dear. What's Dame Violet done?
Apparently, she found a young man in the hall and immediately rang the police, saying he'd broken in. But he was Mrs. Hayden's nephew, come to visit her, and Mrs. Hayden's furious. Oh, dear.
Oh, you better ring your Aunt Patience.
I think I will.
Oh, don't worry. It'll all calm down.
All the same, Grandmama's getting altogether far too eccentric.
Well, ask Daddy. See what he advises.
We can't worry him. He's got his constituents to look after now.
Oh, yes, I suppose he has. Still, we're his constituents, too.
Not till we're 21 and get the vote. I wonder if Liz voted for him.
Of course she did. Oh, really, Laura, what an idea.
I've talked to Liz, and I know she's a bit red, or perhaps I should say pink.
What silly rubbish you talk. That's the car.
Yes, they're back. The new member and his bullshit daughter.
Daddy!
Hello, darling.
Congratulations. Aren't you pleased?
Well, of course I am, you silly child. Well, didn't you hear my speech last night? Oh, I suppose you weren't listening.
Oh, of course we were. We were right under the balcony.
Hello, Laura.
We're so thrilled for you, Commander Bourne.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, Mrs. Gates,
Oh, Sarah,
it's good news, isn't it?
I just don't know what to say. And as for Gates, well, he's that thrilled he doesn't know whether he's on his head or his heels.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Miss Liz, you shouldn't be carrying that. Gates will get it for you.
Oh, there's mine too in Miss Liz's car.
Oh, well, Gates will see to it. I've made some coffee, sir. I expect you can do with a cup.
Oh, I could indeed, Mrs. Gates. You know, we didn't get to bed till 3:30 this morning. Up at 8 for breakfast, back to the committee rooms 8:30, then being driven home by my daughter. That's quite a morning.
Daddy, you know I'm a beautiful driver.
Yes, but beauty is one of the qualities which is quite irrelevant in a chauffeur.
I'll get the coffee, sir.
Letters for you, Liz. Oh, thank you. And for you, Daddy.
Oh, dear me, this place is turning into a sorting office.
How's Nanny? Well, she was a bit shaky this morning.
Overtired after all the excitement, I expect. So I rang for Dr. Cropper.
Oh, dear, bad as that?
Well, not really, but I thought I'd better, just in case.
Oh, quite right. Good girl. What did he say?
Well, she's got to stay in bed and take 2 of her tablets.
He said he'd call round later. Till then, she mustn't get up. But she's dying to see you, Daddy, so you must go up and see her.
She's absolutely thrilled.
Well, I'll look at her see when I go up and change. Ah, there's the coffee. Now, let's get at it.
Thank you, Mrs. Gates.
These came to the back door, sir, for you.
Oh, ready?
It was on the 8 o'clock news on the wireless.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, I'll look at them later. Laura, would you put these in my study for me?
Oh, yes, of course.
Now, I think I'm going to need a private secretary for the next couple of days.
Back's eye.
Oh, you can't spell, darling.
Oh, I expect that's the Horbury Advertiser. They rang earlier about sending a photographer.
Oh, well, look, shall I take it?
Commander Bourne's secretary. Would you hold on, please?
Hello? Yes, so my daughter told me. Hold on a minute, will you, please? 12 o'clock, all right? You going to be in?
Yes?
Okay.
Yes, that'll be fine. Well, let's hope the sun continues to shine. That's all right. Goodbye. Oh, by the way, did anybody ring Grandpa? Because he ought to be told.
Not yet, but wouldn't he be in school this morning?
Oh, it's worth trying his house. Darling, would you get the number for me, please?
Oh, hello, Mrs. Barkworth. Could you get me Datchet 232, please? What? Yes, isn't it exciting? We're all so pleased. Mrs. Barkworth knew all about your victory, Daddy.
What did you expect?
Oh, I see. Will you ring us back, then? Thank you. Trunk lines are all engaged. She'll ring back later. Let's get some coffee. All right.
Well, I think this is the moment to make a short speech.
Oh, not another.
Come on. You may very well laugh. But I would like to take this opportunity to tell you how grateful I am for all the for all the hard work you've done, for all the envelopes you've addressed, for all the silly questions that you've answered, for all the canvassing you've done in fair weather and foul. Oh, and to you, Liz, especially, all the driving you did yesterday, dear, taking voters to the polls. Well, I must admit, had my doubts once or twice.
Oh, what doubts?
Whether you were, in fact, taking my supporters or the Labour voters.
Well, would it have made any difference to the majority?
Of course not. And our local canvassing made no difference either. They'd all have voted for Daddy anyway.
No, they wouldn't, you know. They'd have all stayed at home. Said, don't bother about the commander, he's bound to get in.
That's true. It's exactly what a woman over at Forge Cottage said to Peter.
3 pretty young things like you could be a great asset.
Daddy, did you see your other opponent's wife?
Yes, she can't help looking and sounding like a parrot.
She can't help lecturing people on their doorstep. Wearing those awful tea-cosy hats.
Now, come. We must not be unkind to the Liberals. But seriously, I would just like to say how very grateful I am to you all. Oh, that'll be my course, Charles.
Oh, give him my love. She's going to go upstairs and change and look in on Nanny.
Righto. Hello? Oh, Charles. Oh, I thought I was ringing you. Yes, well, never mind. Well, I gather you heard. Very satisfactory indeed. Well, it's the biggest majority since 1900. Yes, very late. Liz and I stayed the night at the Crown in Westcombe. Oh, incidentally, she sends her love to you.
And mine too.
As do the 2 younger ones. Oh, you heard them, did you? Yes. Well, now, look here. When are you going to come up and see us? Well, you must come up for a weekend soon. Take a what? Oh, take my seat. Oh, sometime next week. Would you like to come in the Strangers' Gallery with the rest of the family? I'm not sure. Tuesday or Wednesday, I expect. All right. Duff Cooper? Yes, wasn't he splendid? Well, First Lord of the Admiralty turning out for a mere commander. Retired at that. Yes, rattling good speech. Particularly on foreign affairs. He really put things in a true perspective, I thought. All right, Charles. Well, I'll ring you about next week. Oh, and I'm in Mother's flat, by the way, while she's away on this cruise. Yes, I'm sure she is. All right, I'll tell him. Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Charles. Well, thank you very much indeed. Goodbye. Oh, he sends his love to you both and hopes to be with you in the house next week when I take my seat.
Oh, you'll enjoy that.
Excuse me, Commander, for you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Gage. Goodness gracious, Gage, what on earth is that? An infernal machine?
It's a wedding present for Miss Liz, sir, from Mrs. Hedges.
Well, in that case, it is an infernal machine.
Well, she delivered it last night, and it hasn't exploded yet.
Whatever could it be?
I don't know, miss, but it weighs a bit, I can tell you.
Oh, well, now, trust Mrs. Hedges.
What time will you be wanting the mare, miss?
Oh, we're in about 10 minutes, please, Gates, if that's convenient.
Oh, very good, miss.
Thank you.
Are you going to ride again, or are you going to be back in time for the photograph?
Oh, but surely you don't want me in that.
I most certainly do. You're one of the family?
The Mrs. Bourne and friend.
Yes, exactly.
Heavens, what's that?
It's for you.
For Mrs. Hedges.
What on earth can it be? Never had so many parcels and letters in my life.
What do you expect? Daddy, look at this enormous cheque I've had from Uncle Julian.
Good Lord.
Who's Uncle Julian?
Oh, well, he's not a real uncle. He's Lizzie's godfather.
How much, Liz?
Never you mind. All the same, I wish he hadn't.
Why not?
Because... Oh, I don't know.
Do open Mrs. Hedges' present, Liz.
Well, I ought to do it with Peter.
Oh, no, please, I can't wait.
Oh, nor can I. What can it be?
3 guesses.
A witch's cauldron.
A bird bath.
A bust of Mrs. Hedges.
Daddy, come on, Liz, undo it.
Give us a hand, all right. God, it's so heavy.
What is it?
Well, it's an elephant's foot, of course.
I don't know why you say of course, Daddy.
What's it for?
With our best wishes for the future, we hope this little offering will be useful as an umbrella stand or a plant pot.
Oh, I can't wait to see Peter's face.
No, nor can I.
Fred. Oh, I don't know how it kept me face straight. That wedding present of Mrs. Hedges to Miss Liz. It was that elephant's foot.
What?
You remember, about 5 or 6 years ago, somebody brought it for the jumble stall at the garden fete. Well, I remember Mrs. Boyd. She stared at it and she said, nobody'll ever buy that, Mrs. Gates. Anyway, by the end of the day, it were gone. So somebody had bought it. Now we know who it was.
Mrs. Hedges herself, as was running the jumble stall. Had it in her attic all these years, I wouldn't doubt, waiting to find a use for it.
Bad you, she polished it up nicely. Oh, but Miss Lizzie's face.
Yeah, how much do you reckon she paid for it, Eileen?
Oh, nothing much. And forms are there. Don't set me off again, Fred. I'll never get on with my work.
Bye. Have a lovely time.
Well, I must go up and talk to Nanny.
Yes, you must. And don't disillusion her.
Well, in what way?
She's convinced you'll be Prime Minister someday.
Oh, well, I won't. Oh, by the way, did you vote for me or for the opposition?
The ballot is secret, Commander Bourne.
Hello, can you get me Layford 17, please? Hello, Layford Park. Could I speak to Mrs. Cartland, please? It's Miss Bourne. Hello, Rosie. I'm so sorry to bother you. Could I possibly come and talk to you? Yes, tomorrow would do. No, please, don't bother about lunch. Well, it's very kind. Am I worried about something? Well, yes, perhaps a bit. I'll explain tomorrow. All right, about midday, then. Thank you, Rosie. Goodbye.
Might I move these flowers?
No. I'll do it for you, darling.
Sure. Just want to unroll these. See if Liz approves of them.
Good idea. How do you feel about them yourself?
Very good. This architect chap knows his onions. What's more, he's cost-conscious, which is more than we said than most young men nowadays. I just hope that Liz is going to approve what I planned.
Oh, I'm sure she will.
Also, I've got these to show her.
Oh, what are they?
They're just ideas for our wedding present to her. And I hope she's going to choose one.
Well, let me see.
First, the pearls.
Oh, they are lovely. But a triple row, I think that's a bit much for Liz.
Why should they be? She's going to be mistress of Layford Park one day.
Yes, well, she's going to have my pearls one day, though. I hope it's not too soon. What else is there?
The bracelet. Look at the workmanship in that. And then there's the spray. What I'm hoping she'll go for is that. Look at the mounting. The stones themselves are going to appreciate in value. You don't like it, do you? You don't like any of them, do you? They're in bad taste.
Nonsense, Geoffrey.
Oh, come on, Rosie. You know what they say about me around here. Geoffrey Cartland, stinking rich and no taste.
Oh, now, Geoffrey, please, don't talk rubbish. They're lovely, and it's very generous of you. It's only that...
Only that what?
Well, I know that diamonds are a girl's best friend, but I just don't think they're quite Liz. I mean, the Bourne girls have been very quietly brought up, and you can't exactly call Arthur an ostentatious man.
So now you're calling me ostentatious?
Willfully misunderstand me, Geoffrey. You know perfectly well We mustn't overwhelm Liz and impose our standards on her.
So what you're saying is she mustn't see these?
Well, of course she must. Only, well, don't be too upset if she chooses something simpler. Oh, dear. I know how excited you've been about the engagement, and now I've spoilt it for you.
Well, aren't you excited?
Well, of course I am. Who wouldn't be?
Liz is a nice girl, and she's a beauty. Of course, I'm delighted my son's going to be married to her.
Oh, there she is.
Damn, I wish Peter could have been here today.
Well, he has some work on with his squadron, but I'm expecting him home later on tonight. Actually, I'm quite glad to have a chat alone to Liz.
So I must make myself scarce after lunch.
Well, you were going to some sports at the factory, weren't you?
Yes, yes. I was only teasing.
Miss Bourne, madam.
Liz, my dear.
Come in, old girl.
Do sit down, darling.
Thank you.
Will you pour the drinks now, Parsons?
Very well.
I say, I hope this is all right. I'm sorry to be a nuisance.
Nuisance. We're always delighted to see you.
We'll have a nice quiet chat after lunch. Hope your father isn't too tired, is he?
No, not really. It's going to be so marvellous for him. Oh,
Well, I thought we might have a champagne cocktail.
at lunchtime. How lovely.
Liz, come and sit a little closer. Rosie and I want to show you something.
Proposed alterations to the old mill house for Mr. and Mrs. Peter Cartland.
Now, simply the outside elevation. You see, there's hardly any change at all.
Such a lovely old mill house. It seems a pity to spoil it.
Well, my architect has promised if he replaces anything, he'll use old materials.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Parker.
Will that be all?
No, that's all, thank you. Now, the house and grounds. I thought the garage is there. The tennis court's there. And here's the swimming pool. The gardens we leave to you and Rosie to decide. With some professional advice, of course. Now, the ground floor. How's that for a splendid room? Windows facing to the north, one window facing to the west, all of them overlooking the park.
That room will have every scrap of sunshine. And look how lovely and big it is.
45 by 25.
But surely there isn't a room as big as that in the house.
No, there isn't. We're going to break through this wall to the west and make both rooms together.
Oh, I see.
Have you got the upstairs plan?
Yes, I have indeed. There is the family bedroom suite. You'll have 5 guest bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. I thought perhaps over the kitchens, the nursery suite.
Yes, of course.
I also thought that perhaps we could put the servants into the cottage and keep only the housekeeper on the premises.
Oh, I see.
Luncheon is served, madam.
Thank you. Come along. Bring your drink with you.
Larkfield Manor? Miss Liz? No, I'm sorry, sir. I'm afraid she's out to lunch. Who is that speaking, please? Oh, I see. Yes, you'll telephone later. Very good, sir. Goodbye. Fred, you'll never guess who that was.
Well, then I won't try.
Mr. Gwilym Meredith Jones.
Who?
You remember that young Welsh professor that came here last summer?
Oh, yes, I remember him all right. Sang in the commander's bath.
That's right. And afterwards there was some sort of political dust-up. I don't like this, Fred.
What?
He has to speak to Miss Liz.
Well, why shouldn't he?
She's engaged.
Well, that doesn't mean to say that she's got to go into Perder.
I know. But Nanny always thought there was something funny about all those visits of hers to Wales. I'm beginning to think she were right.
What a pair of old gossips you are.
I'm afraid Geoffrey was disappointed that I chose this one.
Well, I'm not a bit surprised. You'll just have to get used to Geoffrey. Now you're going to be his daughter-in-law.
Rosie, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I suppose I ought really to have talked to Daddy, but he's been so busy.
Well, of course you must talk to me. What is it, last-minute doubts?
I don't believe Peter and I should ever have become engaged.
Oh, Liz, what a thing to say.
Well, I've got awful doubts.
Oh, darling, but he's devoted to you.
I know, but is that enough?
Darling, this is absurd. You and Peter are admirably suited together.
Except that he wants to leave the stock exchange and come and live up here most of the time. And I do so want to stay on at the Royal Free and qualify.
Would you like some more coffee?
Oh, thank you.
I wonder if you do really. Or if it's not a girlish ambition that's got stuck in your head. I can't help thinking...
No, it isn't.
That you'd be very much happier living here and looking after Peter. And perhaps later on your children. And of course, being near your father now that he's alone.
It's pathetically ironic.
What is?
And what you say about Daddy. It's the very same argument I used myself 6 months ago. And now look what's happened. He's an MP. When the House of Commons is sitting, he'll be in London most of the time. When he's at home, in the recess or at weekends, he'll have more than ever to do with his constituency as well as the estate and all his other commitments. He won't be lonely.
Yes, I do see that, but Well, you're not marrying Peter entirely for your father's sake, I hope.
Anyway, I suppose I am.
Oh, darling, I know how you're feeling, but it will be all right in the end.
Will it? I don't know. Rosie, I am worried. I believe Peter is too. It isn't that I don't like him, love him even. I do. He was wonderful when Mummy and Anne died. The only person I could really talk to. When I first went to London, a big hospital can seem a very lonely place at first. Only now...
Yes?
Well, I'm beginning to ask myself if we've got enough in common. His interests and mine are so different. I believe he feels it too.
Do you know what's wrong with you, Liz?
No, do you?
Yes, I do. It's a very bad case of engagementitis.
What?
It happens to every young girl. At first, there's all the excitement and the fun, the photographers appearing in the Tatler, letters, presents pouring in. Then the symptoms begin to show. Well, first you must meet all your relations and your friends, on both sides, all looking you over. Then the wedding plans. Who's to be asked, who isn't to be asked, the bridesmaids, what they're going to wear, plans for the reception. Do you know, when I married Geoffrey, we had the most enormous row about whether to have oyster patties or not.
Oh, it's not possible.
Yes, it is very possible. But that does not mean that there's anything wrong with you and Peter, and that you won't be utterly happy when you're safely married and living on your own.
Well, then why can't we get married without any fuss? No wedding dresses, no bridesmaids, no flowers.
Oh, you wouldn't really like that.
Yes, I would. I really would. That's what no one could ever understand. Even Peter doesn't. I've tried to talk to him about it. I think he's actually looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm sure he is. It's not such an ordeal for a man.
Dear, you and Geoffrey have been so kind and generous, and those plans, I feel awful.
I think you and Peter ought to go and see the architect and talk over the plans together. Tell him exactly what you want. After all, it is you that's going to live there, not Geoffrey. Tell him exactly how you want it arranged.
You're very kind, Rosie. And I must go now. I've got some letters to answer. I'm hopelessly behind.
I'll just ring for Parsons.
Well, thank you for my lunch. And, of course, diagnosing engagementitis.
I hope you agree with the diagnosis.
I don't know. I must think. I'm just so afraid that Peter has chosen the wrong Bourne. He wouldn't admit it. Phyllis, if she were younger. Vicky, if she were older. But not this one.
Oh, darling, what nonsense you talk. Now, Parsons, Miss Bourne is leaving now.
Goodbye, Rosie.
Bye-bye, darling.
I thought it was going to.
Aren't you feeling jolly pleased with yourself, my dear father?
Commander Bourne does it again.
Now, you aren't by any chance pulling my leg, are you?
Of course not.
After all, it's not bad to win a by-election on Thursday and then a cricket match on Saturday, scoring 53 not out.
No. Well, if you put it that way.
Can I pour you a drink?
Yes, do you think I deserve one?
I certainly do.
All right, small scotch and don't drown it.
Well, I think I'll go and have my bath, so I'll see you later.
Is that all right, my dear father?
That's perfect, my dear child.
Excuse me, Commander, what time will you be wanting dinner?
All but now, Mrs. Gates, say 8:30. Any messages?
Oh, ever so many people have telephoned to congratulate you on the election, sir. In fact, Gates has made a list of them all and he's put them in his study on your desk.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, darling, don't stop. I like that. What is it? Chopin? Schubert? Liszt?
Schumann, Tromeri. Daddy, you do approve of Klaus, don't you?
Klaus? And now I begin to understand. Now, you better come and tell me all about it. Oh, come on. Out with it.
Well, I should have told you before, really, only you were so busy yesterday and this morning you were in such a rush.
Ask me what, darling?
Well, I had a letter from Klaus yesterday. He's staying with some people called Harkness at Pembury near Ross-on-Wye, not very far away.
Oh, yes, Harkness. I met him. One of the big cider men round these parts. He's got a rather charming German wife.
Oh, that's right. She's a cousin of Frau von Heinig's. Anyway, Klaus wants to come over and fetch me and take me to lunch with them. Well, you wouldn't mind, would you?
Oh, darling, of course I don't mind.
Well, I thought that perhaps after what happened the other weekend with Peter...
Oh, good heavens, I'm not going to hold that against you. From what I saw, more than somewhat provoked.
Peter said some horrid things about
And
Germany.
anyway, darling, it's all over and forgotten. No, I only have one thought about you and young Klaus. Well, Vicky, you're not a child anymore. I'm sure you realize, if the worst happens between England and Germany, you were married to Klaus living in Munich, how very sad and unhappy it might be for you. I blame myself for this in many ways.
How, Daddy?
Oh, darling, when you left St. Mary's School, you know, your mother wanted to send you to Paris instead of Munich. I told her that you ought to go to the von Heinigs. Where Anne had been, and because I thought it would be better for your music.
Which it was, Daddy.
But not, it seems, for your ultimate happiness. Darling, have you spoken to Laura about this? I mean, about your feelings for Klaus?
Yes, I have.
Well, what did she say?
Well, she thinks the same as you do. She's worried if ever there was another war.
And Liz?
Oh, I wouldn't mention it to her.
Oh, why not?
Well, I think that row was all Peter's fault, if you ask me. Well, I can't tell Liz that, so I don't mention it.
Oh, Vicky, darling. Oh, you don't have to make irrevocable decisions here and now. You ring up Klaus, you tell him it's all right for tomorrow. Now, you go and enjoy yourself and forget about the future.
Oh, thank you, Daddy. May I use the telephone in your study?
You may. Oh, darling, by the way, this evening after dinner, would you play that piece you played at your recital last week? As Phil said, your tutor was very pleased with you. And would you be willing to oblige?
I'd love to.
All right.
Wake up, Geoffrey. Peter's home.
What? What's the matter?
Wake up. You have been snoozing there for over an hour.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You rang, madam?
Yes, did I hear Mr. Peter's car?
Yes, madam. He's just gone along to the coat.
Would you bring us some food and some coffee?
Oh, I had anticipated that, madam. Chef has made some sandwiches.
Thank you, Parsons. Bring 2 extra cups for Mr. Cartland and myself, would you?
Very good, madam.
I'm sorry, Rosie. Had to drink gallons of beer at that factory. Sports day, expected one.
I only woke you because Peter's home.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you did.
Hello, Rosie. Hello, Dad.
Hello, sir.
Parsons is about to bring you some food and some coffee. You haven't dined, have you?
No, I had a sausage roll in the mess. Wanted to get back here.
Did you have a good day?
Okay. Did some formation flying over the North Sea, but I got some acrobatics in later.
Rather you than me.
Is it very thrilling?
Well, not bad. By Jove, those look appetizing, Parsons. Just what the doctor ordered.
Chef said if you felt like something more substantial, sir.
Oh, no, this'll do fine. Oh, I say, lobster patties.
Breakfast usual time, Parson.
Thank you, madam. Good night, madam.
Good night.
Sir, good
Good
night,
night, Parson.
please.
Good night, Parson.
Now, coffee for you, darling?
Hmm.
And for you, Geoffrey.
Well, I thought I might
I
have
think
another...
you should have some coffee. Black.
Perhaps you're right.
Did Liz come over for lunch?
Yes, she did. Looking ravishing. You're a very lucky man, Peter.
I know. Did you show her the plans for the mill house?
Yes, I did.
She approved?
Well, she better have. They're going to cost me £3,000.
There was just,
Just what?
well, one or two small things. I don't think she's very keen on the new drawing room.
Pity. I rather like large rooms.
So do I.
Do you know, I think you and Liz should go over to the house tomorrow and take the plans with you. Take your time. Talk it over between you. After all, it is you and Liz that's going to live there, not Geoffrey or me or the architect.
That's a good idea. I think I'll go and ring her from my room. Do you mind if I take these?
Hope so. Take a nightcap with you.
I think I'll have a whiskey soda. I'm not flying again until next week.
Will you bring Liz back for lunch after going to the house tomorrow?
I'm not quite sure. Might go over to Morven or somewhere and have a bite to eat there.
I see, all right.
Well, good night.
Good night, love.
Good night.
He's in good form, isn't he?
Yes, seems to be.
She's just coming, old boy. Oh, come on, Circus.
Thank you, Daddy. Hello, when did you get back? Oh, have a good day. That sounds marvellous. Me? Oh, I'm all right. Do I? Yes, I am a bit. It's been rather a tiring fortnight. Oh, yes, isn't it? He'll make a marvellous member. Thrilled? Yes, I am for him. Tomorrow morning. Yes. No, not unenthusiastic. It's... Listen, Peter, I'm a bit stupid tonight, tired as you said. I can't really think about the house. It's all right. Come over tomorrow morning, and I'll give church a miss. Yes, about then. Good night, Peter.
Darling, I just wondered if... Liz, what is it? Darling, what's the matter?
Daddy. Oh, Daddy. I can't go through with it. I can't.
What is it, Peter?
Nothing?
Phone Liz?
Yes.
Is she all right?
Something's wrong, Rosie. Don't seem to be on the same wavelength anymore. I don't know what to do. Did she talk to you today?
Yes, we talked. I think she was worried that you didn't have enough in common.
Medicine against business, socialism against the auxiliary air force. Suppose there's something in that. She's not even remotely interested in music. We've been to the odd concert together, but I know she doesn't listen, like Vicky. And Liz only seems to like the sort of plays and films that bore me stiff.
And there's something in what she said.
Good heavens, I don't think husbands and wives have to share identical interests, do they? You and Father don't?
Oh, darling, it's quite different. I was much older than Liz when I married your father. We accepted each other's values and interests. Besides, I had a ready-made son to bring up. How old were you?
13, nearly 14. I remember the day that Father brought you down to Eton. It must have been my first half. The relief. When I think of the ladies who might have turned out to be my stepmother.
I hope I've been entirely satisfactory.
You know you have, Rosie. Do you mind if we get back to talking about Liz and myself?
Of course not, darling. It's what I'm here for.
I don't think it matters that we don't share the same taste in everything. as long as we love each other and we share the same home and friends. But what does worry me is her absolute determination to carry on that confounded hospital and qualify as a doctor. You know she's gone back to that now, don't you?
I shouldn't worry, Peter. When you're living on your own, a baby on the way.
Oh, you don't understand, Rosie. The moment the commander was adopted as his candidate, her attitude completely changed. And she knew he'd get in. After all, it was a fairly safe seat. Well, now there's no reason for her to live in this part of the world, to be near him. You see, when she talked about giving up medicine before, she was thinking of him. I'm going to be working up here on Pool Aviation. She's going to be slogging away at the Royal Free in London. And I'll just have a weekend wife. God, what's the point of that? And she's made it absolutely clear there's no question of a baby for 3 to 4 years. Which is, forgive me, Rosie, bloody selfish in my opinion.
Geoffrey will be so upset.
Upset? About me? Well, when I see her tomorrow, I'm going to have to settle it one way or the other.
I hope and pray it won't be the other. I want you to be happy, Peter. Both of you.
Darling, are you sure it's not just the strain of the engagement?
No. That's what Rosie said. Engagement-itis, she called it. It hasn't made it any easier, of course. But that's not the real reason.
And the real reason is that you don't really love him.
Daddy, I'm terribly fond of him.
But darling, if you're terribly fond of him, why did you get engaged to him in the first place?
It all started last summer, when Mummy and Anne died, and you were away at sea with the Navy. I was terribly miserable. Well, we all were, of course. But I was bottling it up, trying to hide it. Peter was so kind and sympathetic, and he seemed to understand how much I wanted to be a medical student. And then when he asked me to marry him last winter, he was still on the stock exchange. We'd have been living in London most of the time, and there'd have been no question of my leaving the Royal Free. And then Jack Poole came along. And before I knew what was happening, Peter was to come up here and live at Layford and run the aviation company. And of course, that meant leaving London.
Yes, but wasn't that the time to tell him?
Perhaps. Only... Well, then I was getting worried about you, Daddy.
Me?
I told myself that if I married Peter and gave up medicine, I'd be living so near Larkfield that I'd be able to see you every day and help run the house.
Darling, that's very kind, but...
There's no reason to get married, I know. I told Peter that I wouldn't come and live up here, just come for weekends and holidays. He was very angry with me.
But he accepted it in the end?
In the end, but most reluctantly.
I thought you said he understood.
Well, I was wrong. As long as we were going to be in London, Peter thought of medicine as a useful hobby to keep me occupied. He cannot understand that my career is as important to me as his is to him.
Well, I'm bound to say I feel very sorry for Peter. Sorry for you, too. Breaking off an engagement is not a very easy thing to do. I suppose we'd better put an announcement in the Times. Oh, don't worry, darling. I'll deal with all that.
All the letters that'll have to be written. More letters. The wedding presents will have to be sent back, and all the preparations that have been made. Oh, Daddy, perhaps I'd better go through with it after all.
Oh, now, come on, darling. Now, you know perfectly well that you don't mean that.
No, I don't. Rosie's going to mind so much. I tried to talk to her today to explain. I think she knew what I was saying, but she didn't want to believe it. As for Geoffrey, well, at least he won't be able to force a lot of expensive presents on me anymore.
Darling, I'm afraid there is just one more thing I must ask you.
Yes?
Is there some other reason why you've changed your mind?
Daddy, I just don't feel in love enough to marry. My heart. I can't explain it, Daddy. I just know.
All right, darling. I think that's quite enough for one night, don't you? Now, what about bed?
Yes. Good night, Daddy. Thank you for being so understanding. Peter, please try and understand.
I suppose I do.
You'd never have forgiven me for not giving up medicine.
And you'd never forgiven me if you had.
Exactly.
Oh, perhaps it's not such a bad thing. With the state that Europe's in at the moment, I'm not sure that anyone should get married.
Oh, don't say that. I couldn't bear it.
I'm sorry.
Of course, I must give this back to you.
No. Give me your hand. No, the other one. Your non-engagement one. There. It's no longer an engagement ring, but a ring of friendship.
Oh, Peter, thank you. Oh, we will always be friends, won't we? What are we going to do about all those wedding presents?
Don't look so tragic. It's the least of it. Get Gates to bring them over to Layford in your father's big car. Miss Dale can look after them. Don't worry about that.
Nanny's going to be so upset. All that sewing she did for my veil.
So will Father. So will a lot of people. Let's not worry about them. It's your life. What are you going to do now?
Go back to work, of course. I've got a lot of catching up to do. Peter, darling, goodbye. Thank you for understanding. I'm all packed, so I think I'll go now. Peter, Daddy will be coming back from church any minute. Would you give this to him to give to Rosie? He's lunching over at Layford today.
Yes, I know. Jolly little party that's going to be.
I'm sorry. Oh, goodbye. Be happy.
And you.
I thought we gave a very good rendering between the two of us.
I agree.
Where's Liz off to in her car?
She's gone back to London.
You talked it over then?
Yes, we did.
I'm so sorry, Peter. I really don't know what to say.
As long as Liz is happy. She gave me this note for you to give to Rosie.
You want lunching at home, then?
No. I think I'll go to the airfield in Birmingham and have a bite to eat there. And take up one of the rapids.
Peter, I'm so sorry.
Commander Bourne.
Oh, come in, old chap. Nice to see you.
Arthur, dear.
Oh, Rosie?
Like a drink? Champagne cocktail?
No, thank you, Geoffrey. Not at the moment. I'm afraid I've got some very bad news for you both.
Oh, Lord.
What on earth is all this about?
You better tell him, Arthur.
Geoffrey, it's my daughter and your son. Liz feels that marriage is not quite the right thing for her at the moment. They had a long talk this morning, and the engagement is off.
Why the devil has she done that?
Geoffrey, she was most upset about it.
Why wasn't I told?
Because it was not
Now,
definite.
listen, Geoffrey. If Liz feels they really wouldn't be happy together, surely it's better to say so now, rather than wait until...
Come on, Arthur, out with it. Your daughter thinks my son isn't good enough for her. That's it.
No, I do assure you it's nothing
Don't
like
try
that.
and pull the wool over my eyes. I'm not that big a fool. I'll be in the library if you want me.
Oh, Arthur, I am sorry about that. For some reason, Geoffrey was ridiculously pleased about his son marrying Bourne. He was looking forward to it so much.
I quite understand. Oh, Rosie, I'll push off now. I won't stay to lunch if you don't
Nonsense. He'll be all right once he's had a drink. And they don't expect him to apologize. He's not that sort of a man. Please stay.
Thank you very much indeed for taking it so well.
How did Peter take it?
With considerable dignity. You can be very proud of your stepson.
Oh, dear. All those presents to be sent back and more arriving every day.
Yes, well, I might suggest we put an announcement in the Times as soon as possible. If I might use your telephone.
Will the offices be open on a Sunday?
Yes, they are.
Ah, well, just a minute. Parsons, will you get me the Times, please? Yes, the offices for Commander Bourne. Well, yes, apparently there is someone available there on a Sunday. I want the court circular page for an announcement.
Thank you very much. I suppose there will be hundreds of letters to write. Oh, that reminds me. This is for you from Liz.
What a very sweet note. Poor darling. Arthur, don't you worry about all the presents and letters and details. I can get my secretary to come in full time for the next 3 or 4 days. She'll take care of it.
Thanks very much. That would be marvellous.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll go and calm Geoffrey down. He'll be very ashamed of his outburst. And then we'll have some lunch, shall we?
Oh, hello, Parsons. Yes, thank you. Oh, the Times Court circular page. This is Commander Bourne of Larkfield Manor near Horbury, Herefordshire. I have an announcement for tomorrow's paper. No, it's not an engagement. As follows. The marriage arranged between Elizabeth Sarah Bourne, elder daughter of Commander Arthur Bourne, and the late Mrs. Helen Bourne, and Peter James Cartland, only son of Mr. Geoffrey Cartland of Layford Park, will not now take place.
Hello. By George, it's warm this evening. Especially down in the tube. I had to stand all the way to Oxford Circus. And there are far too many women travelling at rush hour these days. Chap can hardly sit down before he has to pop up again.
Well, some do. All well at the office?
More or less. Oh, one funny thing. We had a phone call from our Birmingham office asking for one of our rapides to stand by next Friday evening. Special flight for Geoffrey Cartland.
Geoffrey? But he won't fly. Where's he going?
I don't know. Abroad, somewhere. I didn't like to ask. You see, it's none of my business.
Well, perhaps his trip to Birmingham with you the other weekend converted him.
He was ill all the way.
Well, he's obviously determined to get over his air sickness. He's got guts, if nothing else, our Geoffrey. Oh, by the way, Liz said she might be popping in this evening if she can get time off.
When?
Any moment now. Has it gone 6?
Yes, well, it'd be nice to see old Liz.
I did rather want to talk to her on my own. We've got a lot to discuss, family matters.
Well, can't I just take my drink and sit on your bed? Don't much want to go out. I've only just got in.
I thought you might like to go and have a game of squash and a bathe at Grosvenor House.
That's an order, isn't it?
No, it's a suggestion.
Okay, if you want to wallow together in that broken engagement, do. Probably just as well if I'm not here. I might say something rather rude to Elizabeth, leading poor old Peter on like that, right up the garden path, and then...
There, she's arrived.
Last. I'm too late.
I suggest you say hello politely and then go.
All right. Hello, politely, then go.
Come in, darling. Jack's here, but he's just off to play squash.
Hello, Liz. I'm glad to catch a glimpse of you anyway. So sorry, have to dash. Got a court booked at 7, so do excuse me. Cheerio.
Yes, goodbye, Jack. Well, come and sit down. Do you want to dump your coat?
Oh, no, thanks.
You look tired. How about a whiskey and soda to buck you up?
No, thanks. Well, perhaps a drop of sherry if there is some.
I saw it in the papers.
Did you? Oh, dear, wasn't it shaming? I can just imagine what all my friends are saying, and mummies and daddies. That wretched Bourne girl, letting the family down, causing all that trouble, just because she couldn't make up her mind.
I think you'll find that quite a few people, the sensible ones, would say how wise you were.
Wise?
Yes, to admit the truth before it's too late.
I must say, Peter was marvellous. I shall always admire him for the way he took it. I wish he hadn't been so kind. It makes it worse in a way.
Well, it's over now, darling. You must both make a fresh start. Try and remain friends if you can.
I'm sure we can. Well, what about you?
I hardly dare tell you after what you've been through.
What do you mean?
Prepare yourself for a shock, darling.
For what?
Can't you guess?
No.
I'm going to marry Jack. I accepted him in the Florida last night.
Phil, how wonderful! Why on earth didn't you say? How could you let me sit here talking about my troubles and all the time... Oh, it's the best news for years. Does Daddy know? Who have you told?
Oh, nobody knows except Jack and me, your papa and now you. And I sent a cable to Granny.
Oh, Phil, I'm so glad. Isn't it silly? I feel almost tearful. Tears of joy for you.
Well, I thought we should have a wedding of some sort in the Bourne family this summer, so as not to disappoint Nanny and the Gates and so
Phyllis, really?
No, I mean it. After all, Jack and I can't make much of a splash, and we're neither of us exactly in the first flush of youth, and Jack's been married twice before, as you know, so...
Oh, it's such wonderful news. When?
Next Thursday, June the 3rd, at Caxton Hall Registry Office, as ever is, 2:30 p.m, if you can get away. And back here afterwards for drink and cold food. It's just Jack's aunt and his sister and the family, no fuss.
But that's only 4 days away. How can you send out cards by then?
There's no need for cards. Jack telephoned his aunt and his sister last night, and Arthur has already made plans for Thursday, which I shall telephone to Nanny Larkfield.
Oh, Phil, I'm so glad. Well, I'm blowed.
There's no need to look so surprised, Liz. I'm not 40 yet, you know, and it's never too late.
Is it all right to tell Fred, Nanny?
Oh, yes, certainly. I'll have to be told if we're all to travel down the day after tomorrow. You see, Phyllis spoke to the commander in London this morning, And then she just told me just now on the telephone to warn the two of you.
Oh, Fred'll be that excited. I mean, the trooping of the colour and the family wedding, eh? Must be 3 or 4 years since we went to London at least.
That's it, really. Well.
Here, Eileen. Spinach, leeks, and some nice cabbages.
Yeah, that'll do nicely, love, thanks. Have you got a minute, Fred?
There's a cup of tea going, I have.
Oh, yes, there is.
Sit down, I'll pour you one. Hey, Nanny's got some news for you.
Has she now? What's the news then, Nanny?
Oh, no, you tell him, Eileen. Go on.
Well, first of all, it's about Miss Phyllis.
What about her?
She's getting married. Now, what do you think of that?
She's not.
She is.
Well, I'm jiggered. God, so she's landed him after all, eh? Good for her.
Oh, I don't think you should use that expression, Fred. After all, she's every bit as good a catch for him. He's nothing out of the ordinary.
Oh, I'm sure you're right, Nanny.
Well, whatever the rights or wrongs of it, they're to be married at the Caxton Hall Registry Office next Thursday.
Sure, wonders will never cease.
And there's a little celebration in Miss Phyllis's flat afterwards.
To which we are all invited.
And the commander's got tickets for you and me, and Nanny and Miss Vicky, all to go to the trooping of the colour on the Wednesday. You see, that's the day before. And we're to stay the night at a hotel in Paddington, and then come back here on the Thursday night. How's that for a treat, eh, Fred?
Well, I must say that sounds very nice. It cost the commander a bit, that will, eh?
Oh, well, he says it to make up for the other family wedding we didn't have this summer up here.
Well, I expect he'll be quite pleased to get his sister married off.
I bet he will.
Hope she knows what she's doing.
Oh, he's very nice, is Mr. Poole. I know he's a bit of a gambler, like, and a fly-by-night. But he's always very nice and friendly when he comes here, always very polite. I've nothing against him, nothing at all.
Well, I must say that sounds like a very nice little expedition.
Yes.
Trooping of the colour, eh? Oh.
And he's got seats for us on a stand on Horse Guards Parade.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Oh, better get your best suit out, Fred. Make sure it's clean.
Yeah, right. Right, I will.
Oh, I nearly forgot, Fred. More orders for you.
What, from the governor?
Yes. Well, it's you're to meet Mr. Ashley at Horbury Station this evening, 7:19 train.
Oh, but that's not the London train.
No, I know it's not. He's coming from Ludlow.
He's staying the 2 nights here and then he's going down to London with us early.
Right you are. What's he doing at Ludlow?
Well, he's been to our funeral. Some old schoolmaster friend of his.
You know, he'll only have Miss Vicky to keep him company this evening.
Oh, that can't be helped.
Yeah, well, I'd better be getting on then. Yeah, if we're going up to London on Wednesday, I'll have to get my beans in tomorrow.
Liz gone?
Just.
Good Lord, you had a long session.
Oh, we had a lot to talk about. Did you get a game of squash?
Yes, I did. I had played 5 games with the pro, and I beat him 3-2.
Ah.
Then I had a dip in the pool, and here I am, exercised, healthy, and ravenously hungry.
I can only offer you an omelette.
An omelette? Oh, no. I'm taking you out tonight, my girl. I'm taking you to Madame Prunier's, where we shall stuff ourselves with lobster thermidor and heaven knows what else.
Steady on, Jack. You're not a millionaire. Prunier's is madly expensive.
Nonsense. I'm a captain of industry now. The uncrowned king of air transport, Tsar of pool aviation.
Yes, but we've got to save now. You have. You're going to have a wife to keep, old boy, and new responsibilities. So let's not go mad and dine at Prunier's every other night when we can have a cosy omelette here, or we'll end up in Carey Street. You forget I was brought up at Larkfield in the bosom of the Bourne family when every penny counted. We're very humble, simple folk. Distressed gentry, didn't you know?
But you're not too humble or simple to sink your teeth into a lobster thermidor. You're engaged. That doesn't happen every week.
All right, greedy, I'll go and get my coat.
That's my girl. I'll buzz down for a taxi.
Grandpa.
Hello, Vicky, my dear. You here all on your own?
Afraid so.
Well, your father thought he might get stuck in town, having to see the chief whip and arranging to move into Granny's flat.
I know. Still, he'll be at Phyllis's and Jack's wedding on Thursday. You have heard the good news, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. Your father told me. And so did Gates, all the way from the station. It is splendid, isn't it?
I had a bet with Laura they'd get married.
Oh, you did? Well, where is Laura?
Well, she's in London this week going to a dance.
Ah.
I hope she'll get to the wedding, though.
Well, it looks as if you and I'll have to keep each other company just for this evening, doesn't it? Well, look, I'll go and clean up a bit. I expect dinner will be ready soon.
It's ready when you are, Grandpa. Mrs. Gates told me to say.
Oh, good. Well, I shan't be a jiffy.
Right.
Well, that's soon done. It's quite early yet. Didn't spend long in the dining room, did they?
Well, I can't see wee Vicky sitting on in the dining room over a cigar and a glass of port with her grandpa.
You know, Nanny, I think I'll leave the dining room table till tomorrow morning.
Oh, I would.
But Gerald Worley was about 73 or 4, I suppose. He had to give up his house about the same time as I gave up mine. About 2 years ago. But he had to retire, you see. He just couldn't go on. He'd been so ill. Was a nice man. Quite a lot of his old boys were there. Some of them had come a long way. I wonder how far any of my old boys had come to see me into my grave, if they came at all. Preston Minor would be late, of course. The Ambrose boys would probably turn up on the wrong day.
Oh, Grandpa, what an awful thing to say.
No, I'm sorry, Vicky. I mustn't be morbid. But you know, Vicky, when you reach a certain age, 70 years and 10, you can smile at death a bit, you know. Make jokes about it. You can face it with a bit of humour. It helps, you see.
Yes, I understand.
It's curious, you know, that the figure of death has two such distinct and different aspects. Death can be very kind to some people and very cruel to others.
Yes, I see that, as though there's a kind of place somewhere, a sort of headquarters. Well, God, I suppose, that sends out messengers all over the world every day to find the people whose time has come. And they sort of tap them on the shoulder and say it's their turn.
Yes. And some, the very old and feeble and the very sick, they turn and smile with relief and go with the messenger quite happily.
But young people, people of Mummy's age.
That's not so easy to explain.
No.
Vicky, do you know what I'd like?
A piece on the piano.
Yes, let's have some Debussy. Not Afternoon of a Goat, please. Do you remember? Or perhaps some Beethoven?
I think I know what you like, Grandpa.
Vicky, I've been thinking. I think it'd be rather nice if you came down to Datchet and spent a few days with me directly after Phyllis's wedding. And then the following day, we could go to the 4th of June at Eton, meet some old friends.
Oh, could I? I'd love that.
Well, we could travel down together from Phyllis's by train. I've spoken to your father. He thinks it's a splendid idea.
Oh, yes, it is. I'd love to go. Thank you, Grandpa.
Ah. Well, I hoped you'd be pleased. I know I am. Now, what about my recital?
Right, you are. Here goes.
Threshold if it's the last thing I do. It's an old, established custom. There. Why?
Oh, we must pull ourselves together. They're going to be here in a moment. They're only just behind us. Oh, now you go and get the champagne. It's on ice in the bar, and I'll fetch a bit of grub.
Right. How many shall I bring in?
3.
3?
Oh, we can always open more if we need them.
All right. Tell you what. Let's get one open quickly before anyone else arrives. All right. You look scrumptious.
Well, there they are.
Gibbs. Delicious. Hello, Nanny, Vicky. Hello, Mrs. Gibbs. Shall I take your coat?
Vicky, my darling, have a glass of champagne and take a glass for Nanny, will you, sweet? Gates, Mrs. Gates, come along in and have some champagne and something to eat if you like. Did you get a taxi all right?
Yes, thank you, Miss Phyllis. One came just after you and Mr. Poole left.
Mr. Ashley's coming on by tube, miss.
Oh, is he? He'll never get here. Is he on his own?
No, Peter went. They'd better say they'd be here first, but they aren't, thank goodness. Oh, there they are. Gosh, we only just beat them. They owe us 5 balls.
Well, let them in, darling. I think we do make them.
We won. You owe us 5. Oh, sorry. Is this Miss Bournes?
Mrs.
Bournes.
Aunt Sybil, hello.
Jack,
Hello, Sybil. How are you? How's Auntie?
Hello, dear.
Let
Sybil,
me go first,
Hetty.
and I'll get you
Come
some
in and
champagne.
Jack will get you some champagne.
Look, what about a spot of cheery music, old thing?
I'll put the gramophone on.
Sorry about that. I thought you were done. Did you really? Yes, my goodness.
There. Bubbly.
Lovely, thank you.
I haven't
Now,
seen
something
your
to eat.
sister.
My sister, you mean Liz?
Yes, that's right. Isn't she coming?
Well, she's going to drop Daddy off at the House of Commons and then come on from there.
I'll bet she's jolly excited about her own wedding. Isn't it quite soon?
It's been put off, Peggy. But didn't Jack tell you? No, he didn't. Oh, it's a shame.
They changed their minds.
And was it the first trooping that you'd been to?
Oh, no, sir, no, but I haven't been for a good many years now, sir. The wife's never been before.
Oh, really?
No, I've never seen the trooping of the colour. And mind you, I've seen it on the pictures.
Oh, no, there's nothing quite like the real thing, is there?
Oh, it was lovely, wasn't it, Fred? What's a good thing the rain kept off, though.
Oh, there's Liz now. Will you excuse me if I go and ask her something?
Of course, my dear. Do you think Jack could spare me another glass of champagne?
Is Daddy coming on?
No, he won't be able to. Oh, Phil, I'm terribly sorry. Daddy's asked me to apologise, but he got caught up at the house.
Well, never mind. He made the registry office. I cannot imagine what has happened to Charles and Peter.
Well, they decided to come by tube. They'd better say be here first. And Grandpa was certain he would be. We're not stuck in some tunnel.
Here you are, Liz, a nice refreshing glass of bubbly.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Phil, Jack, lots of happiness and all my love.
Well, thanks very much, Miss old thing. Thanks.
That must be Grandpa.
Yes, right.
Vicky, Elizabeth.
That's my boss and my boss's wife. Hello, Jack.
I'm sorry we didn't make the registry office, but I'm sure you didn't need us there.
My fault entirely. It was a businessman's luncheon. Burnt cars at the Connaught Rooms.
And I had to listen to Geoffrey making terrible jokes about tappets and camshafts, which I didn't understand a word.
Well, the registrar managed to make us legal and official in about 10 minutes flat, didn't he, Phil?
Quick, isn't it? It's over in a moment.
So painless.
So was mine. Geoffrey always tells his friends it was so quick he left the engine running outside the registry office, dashed in, married me, ran out again, jumped into his motor car, and we were in Wolverhampton by tea time for a board meeting.
Hello, my darling.
All happiness, love.
Well, where's Peter?
We're somewhere down in the underground with Grandpa. There'll be hours.
Phil, do you mind if I pop in there and repair my makeup?
Of course, darling. I'll bring you a glass of champagne. Geoffrey, come down and have it. Here you are. Drink up. All happiness and success to you both. Are you all right? You look a bit blue. No, I'm all right, thank you. I think we're all a bit blue underneath, even Jack and me. It's this Liz and Peter business. It's a debauch.
No, it's not that, not really.
I thought it was rather gruesome seeing it in the Times, splashed all over the court circular page.
Well, it was disappointing, but not a tragedy.
No, I agree. How's Geoffrey?
Oh, very busy. He's flying abroad tomorrow.
Yes, so I gather, in a pool company rapide. He seems to have got over his flying nerves.
Yes, he has, hasn't he? How did you know?
But Jack told me.
He has bumped into Miss Finch again, isn't that odd?
Has he? Where?
At a meeting of the Horbury Hunt Committee last week. I thought she'd gone abroad for good, but she was there. I must go and join your guests. We must.
Yes. I'll get you a refill.
Oh, would you? Lovely.
You've been hours, where have you been?
Well, hardly hours, I think.
Well, at least 10 minutes. What happened?
Nothing happened, Vicky.
Well, that's not quite true, actually. Something did. It's all my fault.
You lost your bet.
Yes, I suppose we did. Due entirely to a regrettable error of navigation on the part of my travelling companion. I shall say no more about it.
Oh, come on, Grandpa, do tell. It's not fair.
No, I think Peter had better tell you. I'm going to find Phyllis and ask her to give me a glass of wine which I have richly deserved.
Oh, Peter. What went wrong, Peter?
I don't think your grandfather's ever going to forgive me as long as I live. You see, when we were changing from the inner line at the Charing Cross, we got on the northern line instead of the Bakerloo line. We had to get up Tottenham Court Road, go all the way back and start again. I remember the old boy up the wrong tunnel.
Peter, what's it say here about you leading Grandpa astray in the tube?
You heard about it already?
Yes, he certainly has told me. He said that you've got to buy yourself an underground map and do some homework on it, otherwise he'll never go anywhere with you again.
If you'll excuse me, I'll go and rescue Aunt Sybil. Looks a bit stuck.
Everything all right?
Yes, thank you.
Could have been us today.
I'm sorry.
No hard feelings, as we said.
Peter, I can't get over how nice you've been.
What do you expect me to do? Get angry and hit you?
You might give up talking to me, I suppose.
Silly. Anyway, I still feel what I told you.
What?
Europe's still looking pretty black. No time for a chap in the auxiliary air force to get married. Not just now. Stay single.
Who could that be?
Heaven knows, we're all here, aren't we?
Maybe it's the people from downstairs complaining about the noise.
Well, you ask them in. Ask them in for a drink. That'll fix
Four
it.
guests arriving, Gates.
Surprising how many people you can get into one room, isn't it, sir?
Oh, this really is a very spacious flat, isn't it? It's quite deluxe.
Oh, hello, Mr. Meredith. Liz, you remember me when you came to my brother's house.
Meredith Jones. Look, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you had company.
Well, fancy seeing you here. Jack, this is a friend of Lizzie's who called on us at Larkfield last summer. Mr. Meredith
Jones, look, I'll go away. I've come the wrong day.
No, you come on in and have a drink. You're very welcome,
Yes, of
Liz.
course you must.
Well, it's the Welshman, the professor from Aberystwyth. How very nice. Good. Liz.
Willem, I didn't expect to see you here.
I'm so sorry. I came up to London early this morning to see about my doctorate at London University, so I thought I must look up Elizabeth, but I mustn't interrupt your gathering.
Well, it's my aunt's wedding. You remember Aunt Phyllis? She was at Larkfield.
Yes, I played the piano for you when you sang that ballad.
Yes, I remember, so please excuse me.
No, Gwilym, I insist. This is Professor Meredith Jones. This is Mrs. Cartland and her stepson Peter and Mr. Cartland. Gates, I'm sure you remember from Larkfield. Nanette and Mrs. Gates. Mr. Ashley, you've met again. And
Yes.
Vicky, you remember?
Oh, yes.
My aunt-in-law, Mrs. Haley, my sister-in-law, Peggy Poole, and my husband of half an hour, Jack Poole.
That's very good, Phyllis. Well done.
Liz,
I must say,
would you get Gwilym a glass of champagne?
Yes, of course.
I don't think you...
Are you all right?
Why shouldn't I be?
I had to ask him in, darling. I couldn't leave him standing on the doorstep.
I know you couldn't. It's just rather embarrassing with Peter here and everybody.
Well, Peter hasn't the slightest idea who he is, unless Vicky tells him. Even so, as far as anyone's concerned, he's just a young Welsh professor who called on us at Larkfield last summer.
I do so wish he hadn't turned up. I mean, today of all days.
He wasn't to know the place would be crawling with your relations. What's the matter? Are you ashamed of us all?
Don't be silly. I'm sorry, Phil. Being horribly rude and bad-tempered. I just finding everything a bit too much, I suppose. I'll go and talk to him.
Oh, please do, darling. Try and make him feel reasonably welcome.
Oh, what hello. Pardon me, is this the ladies' parlour room?
Sure thing, sister.
I needed a breather, do you mind?
Help yourself, honey.
Oh, my goodness. That Welshman is enchanting. I gather he's a doctor, professor or something?
He is a professor of Welsh history and archaeology at Aberystwyth University. He's also one of the reasons, in my opinion, for my niece's sudden decision not to marry your stepson.
Oh, really? Oh, that I didn't know. Well, I always had a feeling there was someone else in the offing. Well, I quite understand. He's just the sort of young man I would imagine Liz would be attracted to. Clever, witty, unusual, with rather a lot of sex appeal. He's quite something, isn't he?
I agree. Liz is mortified that he's turned up here today. I can't think why. She's no longer engaged to Peter. If I were in her shoes, I'd be thrilled. It's a funny girl.
Oh, Phyllis, why is it that every time you and I talk here in your flat that one or other of us is in trouble?
You're not telling me there's trouble for one of us now, on my wedding day?
Yes, for me, and I need your help.
You know you can always count on that. What's the matter, Rosie?
You know I told you that Geoffrey was flying abroad tomorrow?
Yes, in a Pool Aviation Rapide.
Yes, exactly. I hate to have to ask you this. It's deceitful, underhand, mean.
Asking what?
I must be truthful. And I must ask you to promise not to say a word to anyone. But my dear repentant Geoffrey, do you remember?
Repentant? Yes?
Yes, well, my Geoffrey has overcome his desperate fear of flying and takes off tomorrow, not from, as you'd imagine, our Birmingham base, but from Croydon. The pilot has been ordered to fly down from Birmingham and pick him up there. I don't know why he's going or with whom. Perhaps he's going alone. But I do know, or I think I know, that his destination is apparently Nice. It may be business, it may not. But this time I've got to know. No more turning a blind eye or clinging on to a marriage which, let's face it, is not deliriously happy for the sake of my father or Arthur or simply for the look of the thing. This time, I have to be absolutely sure of Geoffrey. Phil, I want to know where and with whom Geoffrey is flying in that aeroplane tomorrow. God, that's sordid, suspicious, isn't it? Go on, say it.
Not at all. Don't say another thing, darling. One word from me and Jack will discover the truth. In the strictest confidence, of course.
If only you could, but you really must be very careful.
Will. Leave it to us. It's a pity. Geoffrey's been very good to us in his way.
Yes, he's been very good to me too in his way. But
I must go and mingle. Will you be all right?
And you?
Well, look after yourself, Peg. Goodbye, Aunt Sybil. Thanks for your support.
Goodbye. Thank you so much for coming.
Good. So much from my side of the family.
Well, now we've got to get to work and get rid of mine, or we'll never be at Heston by 6.
Come on, then.
Is everyone all right?
Yes, thank you. I should think so. Forgive me, I must have a word with you.
Phyllis, we simply ought to go. We mustn't outstay our welcome, and you must set off soon too, mustn't you?
Must you? Well...
I understand from Jack he's flying off to Deauville in that machine of his.
Yes, he wants to take off by 6 so we can land in daylight.
Better him than me.
I thought you'd got over your flying nerves.
No, not quite. Not yet.
But you're flying somewhere tomorrow in a Pool Company Rapide.
Yes, that's the company trip. One does have to fly on company trips. Rosie, we must go. All right. Jack, goodbye.
Oh, goodbye.
And congratulations again.
Thanks.
Goodbye, Phyllis. Well, thank you so much. Have a lovely honeymoon. Look after her.
Trust me.
You always have.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, Dad. Bye-bye, Rosie.
What time will you make it?
It's just leaving 4, Nanny. Why do you think we should be moving?
Yes, well, we'll miss that train. You
Come
know.
on, Fred, drink up your champagne. We'll have to get going or else we're going to miss the train, Nanny says. Come on.
Well, I suggest we all share a taxi to Paddington. Now, Nanny and the Gates will get the 4:52 back to Holbury, and you and I'll get the 5:05 to Datchet, change at Slough. You've got your suitcase with you, haven't you, Vicky?
Yes, Grandpa, I'm all ready.
Good.
Are you sure you wouldn't prefer to go to Paddington by tube?
No, I would not. Now, I suggest we all share a taxi to Paddington.
Oh, yes, I think that's a very good idea, Mr. Ashley, don't you, Fred?
Vicky, come along. We must be off. Say your goodbyes, my darling.
Goodbye, Grandpa, goodbye.
Goodbye, my lovely. Goodbye, yes. Goodbye, Professor. Very nice to see you again. Come along, all of you.
Goodbye, Mr.
Thank you so much. Where's your suitcase, Vicky?
Luckily, there's no bitterness between us. It was just that I knew it would be wrong and unfair to him marrying him feeling as I did. He's awfully nice.
He looks a pleasant sort of chap. I'm not really surprised, though. That day you came to see me in my rooms at Aberystwyth with your friend.
Oh, John T. Hughes Williams.
Yes, Jonty. I could tell you weren't very happy about your engagement. You spoke very little about your future marriage. Only about Wales and old history and other things.
Yes, I know. Look, are you in London for a bit? I'd just like to talk to you, quietly, but not here.
I have to go back to Wales tonight.
What time?
My train leaves Euston at 7:18, but perhaps we could go up to a tea shop or something for a quiet chat.
Now then.
Who's for a last glass of champagne?
Oh, no, thank you, Jack.
All right. What about you, Pete?
No, I must be off, but I thought I'd try and get to see a film.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Have you met Professor Meredith Jones and Peter Cartland?
Oh, I was just
Properly, how do you do?
Hello.
Hello.
Jack.
Mm-hmm.
So, what film are you going to see?
I thought I'd try and get in and see The Good Earth. It's on at the Palace.
Oh, it's a fine book. Pearl S. Buck, an American lady, wrote it about the impoverished peasants of China. Very moving, I found it.
Well, you've read everything.
Try and get to see the film sometime, shouldn't you?
Oh, I don't go to cinemas very much. Don't care for them, all gangsters and jazz. Besides, it takes up good reading time.
Do you think so? Well, I must be off. Goodbye, Professor. Goodbye, Liz. Bye-bye, Phyllis. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Peter.
Well, I think perhaps we ought to be going, Gwilym. My aunt and her husband will be leaving the flat soon. They're flying over to France this evening.
Oh, that sounds very dashing.
Phil, we must leave you now so you can get off to the aerodrome.
Yes, it was very kind of you to have invited me to your wedding breakfast.
But not at all. It was lovely to see you again. Besides, we're fellow countrymen. I seem to remember you saying that the Bournes had Welsh blood in their veins.
Oh, yes, indeed.
I don't think my father's ever got over that.
Look, I'll square up a bit while you go and get changed.
Oh, no need, Jack. Leave everything. Liz, yes. Now you know that Jack and I have to depart in 10 minutes. Why don't you stay here and talk to Gwilym? You won't be disturbed.
Well, that would be very nice. Just that Gwilym's catching a train back to Wales later on, and, well, there's nowhere much to go, is there? I mean, between now and 7.
Oh, no, you can always pop out to a tea shop or something.
Nonsense. You can make tea here. There's plenty of milk in the larder, isn't there? Stay here and be comfortable.
All you have to remember to do is to slam the front door when you leave.
Well, that's very kind.
Jack's going round to get the car now, and I'm going to change, and then we'll be off and out of your way.
Jump along.
If you want to be loved, if you can exercise all that fat off, take it off of here, off of there. When you see it anywhere with your hat off, have a Marcel wave in your hair. Take care of all those charms, and you'll always be in someone's arms. Keep young and beautiful if you want to be loved.
Car's outside and we're all set to go. Phil, are you ready?
Just 3 minutes. I'm tidying the spare room.
Oh, if you'll excuse me, I'll just go and help her.
Make yourself some tea?
No, not yet. Maybe later. Thank you very much.
You can find everything there, in the kitchen.
Yes, thank you. You'll have fine weather, I think, for your airplane flight.
Should be. Metroport was okay. Might be a little bumpy over Kent till we get out over the sea. Little cloud perhaps over the coast of France. Not much.
Oh, yes.
Fly yourself, do you?
For me, I've only been up in the sky once.
Really?
Yes, at a fair outside Colwyn Bay when I was a lad. Sir Alan Cobham came down with his flying circus, gave all the kiddies joyrides over the sea. 10 bob for 20 minutes. Up in a terrible old machine, a wartime plane, I think it was. I was very giddy when I came down, and I couldn't hear. My ears were blocked, but didn't like it.
If you're really sure.
Well, of course I am. Where else can you sit and talk privately except on a park bench, which will be drafty, or else in a cafe, which will stink of chips and ketchup and be sordid? So, stay here. I'm ready at last.
Rightio.
Don't forget to slam the front door.
No, we won't. Well, have a lovely honeymoon, Phil.
Bye.
Bye, Jack. Happy landing.
And thank you very much for the use of your flat.
Not at all.
Et maintenant, nous partons en France. Monsieur et Madame Jacques Poul.
Pour la lune de miel. Au revoir tout le monde. À tout à l'heure.
There. Isn't it quiet after all that chatter?
She seems very happy and excited, your aunt.
Well, it's not surprising.
Well, they're well suited, I think.
Yes, I hope so.
What will you do now you're not to marry?
I'll go on with my medical studies at the Royal Free and try to qualify.
As a lady doctor?
Yes.
I, too, shall be a doctor in the autumn.
You?
When I take up my doctorate at London University.
You got it! Oh, Gwilym, that's wonderful, but you didn't say.
Well, I haven't had much chance.
So you'll be in London next winter?
From September.
So we'll be quite close to each other.
We shall be.
Meanwhile, you're returning to Aberystwyth.
Yes. And in July, I start my long vacation.
Oh, what will you do?
Me? Oh, this year I'll take a party of my students to the Welsh mountains. An archaeological dig, we call it.
A dig? Not Owen Glendower again?
No, not this time. It's the site of an old Saxon fort near Cwm Bach. 4 men and 3 girls. To look for relics of a former civilization.
Sounds fascinating.
Oh, it will be. Very fascinating.
Hard work, though, I expect. Digging away in the summer heat.
Oh, yes, hard work and very rough living conditions. Not at all the sort of holiday for a young lady brought up respectable, oh, no.
Oh, no, of course not. Though I expect it will be necessary to have some knowledge of Welsh history.
No, they'll learn from me as they go. I shall give instruction and lectures.
But the girls, I mean, who go with you, surely they'll be archaeologists and history students, won't they?
No, not all of them. Meg Thomas, she's one. She takes medical studies like you. Wants to be a doctor of people. Very nice girl.
Really?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Do you actually need another girl? I mean...
Well, to make up the numbers, yes, but it's not essential.
When do you go?
First week in July.
My summer vacation begins at the end of June.
Oh.
Look, Willem, can I go with you?
You? Goodness!
I just want to get right away this summer, away from my family, and I want a change, a real change, and time to think. Please.
We shall assemble at my college in Aberystwyth on the 6th of July and leave that night by Charabanc for Cwm Bach. There won't be too much to pay.
Gwilym, can you keep a place for me just for a week? You see, I shall have to ask permission. Oh, could be somebody wanting Phyllis. Excuse me. Hello, Langham 2315. No, I'm... Daddy, yes, it is. Yes, it all went off very well. Lots of lovely champagne. Oh, yes, we all missed you. No, I'm afraid not. They've just gone off in Jack's car to go to Heston Airport. Well, I said I would, just sort of staying on. Well, I said I would. I've got nothing else to do until I go back to the hospital. Daddy, I'm not unhappy, honestly. Well, I'd be thrilled to dine at the house, but not this evening. I'd love to another time. No, not a bit depressed or sad, I promise. All right, we'll look forward to seeing you next weekend. Bye.
got everything. That's it.
Yeah. Home sweet home.
Well, everything seems to be all right. Thank goodness.
Well, why shouldn't it be, Eileen?
Well, you never know. With us all away in London, the old manor could have been broken into or burnt to the ground.
Oh, don't say that, Eileen.
Frank Chapman would have seen the flames and sent for the fire brigade.
Well, perhaps he would. But I don't think he'd have seen burglars from the dairy farm, Fred.
You've got a morbid imagination, you have.
Here, Nanny. Do you fancy a nice cup of cocoa?
Oh, that would be comforting, Eileen.
All right. I'll go and put the milk on. I'll not be a tick.
So the old place is empty again, eh?
Sure, Fred, I can't help wondering how long it'll be before there's wee children running about the old house again.
Well, Mr. Poole and Miss Phyllis won't have any kids. Not their time of life.
Sit down and rest your feet, Fred. Well, you can. There's nobody here.
No, tar, Nanny. I think I'll go and give Eileen a hand with the cocoa. Be all right, will you?
Oh, I'll be all right.
Well, don't get too morbid, eh? Oh, well, I was just coming in to give you a hand.
Oh, it's quite all right, Fred. Nothing left to do, thank you. Isn't Nanny coming through?
Oh, it doesn't look like it. She sat herself down on a chair in there. I reckon she's waiting to be served with her cocoa like Queen Victoria.
Oh, now, Fred. You know as well as I do that Nanny holds a very special position in this house. And she's an old lady, too. And she brought up the commander and Miss Phyllis. And I reckon she's entitled to sit herself down in the hall if she feels like it. So stop being so petty and give me a hand with this tray. Come on.
Oh, the butler now, am I?
Well, when the family's away, and there's only you and me and Nanny, I reckon you are. Come on.
Very good, m'lady. Like a blooming blanket, don't I?
Oh, dear.
Cocoa is served, Your Majesty.
It's just Fred's little joke, Nanny, take no notice of it. You be careful you don't spill it on them covers, Fred Gates.
I will take every precaution so not to do, m'lady.
Oh, do give over, Fred.
Has the trooping of the colours been too much for him, perhaps, Eileen? Seeing all the royal family at the same time.
I reckon you're right, Nanny. I reckon that's what's done it.
Sit down, Eileen.
No. Not in here. It's not right.
Well, I'm going to.
Nanny was just saying she wonders when there'll be any more babies at Larkfield. Well, I can't see Miss Phyllis having any, not any at her age.
I don't see why not. She's only 38.
Oh, they may. I'm not saying they won't.
And then Miss Liz, I mean, she'll get married one day. Oh, she's too good looking not to get a husband. When she wants, I mean. And then there's Miss Vicky.
Oh, well, if Miss Vicky has babies, they'll all be little uns, won't they? I mean, her being sweet on that young Von Einig.
Oh, I can't see the commander allowing that marriage, can you, Nanny?
Well, he may be a German, but he's a very charming boy. And our wee Vicky has carried a torch for him ever since she was first in Munich.
Well, all I'm saying is that if she gets married to him and she goes out to live in Germany and there's another war, her being English, well, she'll be interred. That's where she'll be.
Interred, Fred?
Well, that's what I said. Interred.
That means she'll be buried in the ground. That's not a very nice thing to say, Fred.
The word is interned, Fred.
I know that. Well, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Be a tragedy, though, wouldn't it? Commander losing another one of his kids in Germany. Yeah, well, I'd better take your case upstairs for you, Nanny.
Oh, thank you, Fred, if you would. Just dump them in my schoolroom, if you will, Fred.
Right you are, Nanny.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that wind.
Do I? I've never liked a wind. Especially since the branch came down in the old cedar tree.
Oh, yes, that was last spring, wasn't it? Look, it's a cold night for June, Nanny. Are you sure you wouldn't rather come over to the lodge and spend the night?
No, that'll be fine. Thank you all the same, Eileen.
Oh, you know, this old house hasn't been empty since last New Year's Eve, wasn't it? When you went down to London with the girls to Miss Phyllis's.
That was when Fred was laid up with his chest.
You know, I came over 2 or 3 times during those 2 evenings. Just to see if the doors were locked, you know, and everything was all right. And I remember thinking to myself then, I thought, oh, I wouldn't like to spend the night alone in this house. I used not to feel like that, Nanny, but just lately, I don't know, it seems a bit weird. Just sometimes.
Well, it's been a house of sorrow over the past year or so. Maybe that's why. Sorrow hangs about a house like smoke.
I put your case up in your room for you, Nanny, and I've turned a few lights on for you.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Fred. Do you know, it's funny you should say what you said, Eileen, about the feeling of the house when it's empty. You know, dear, even when the family are all here and just gone out for dinner somewhere, and I'm sitting on my own up in my schoolroom, especially if there's a wind, I've seen me fancying I could hear voices calling about the house, as if the old manor was full of people moving about, up and down the stairs, along the passages, and up in the attic. Then I couldn't hear the voices anymore. Only the wind in the chimney and outside the windows. It's funny.
Yeah, well, I think we better be getting back to the lodge, Eileen. It's getting late.
Yep. All right, Fred. Got your torch?
Yes, I have. It's in the kitchen.
Now, are you sure you're going to be all right, Nanny?
I'll be all right. Why shouldn't I be? I live here. There aren't any ghosts in the old house. Can only be friendly ones.
That's right, they will. Good night, love.
Good night, dear.
Night, Nanny.
Good night, Fred.
What are they going to do? Cut my head open or something? They are, aren't they?
Not necessarily, darling. They may just want to x-ray it. But we don't know.
So how can they know till they've examined you?
That's right, Tilly. You just have to wait and see and be a brave wee lass.